that scared me to the point where I had to do something. And he finally ended that meeting, that appointment with, you get hold of this and change your life or you won't live through the year.
I'm super excited to have you with us today. This is the first episode of the Food Fixer Experience podcast. And my name is Roland Venata.
My name is Vince Roundtree.
And we've got Mr. Jim Matthews here with us. Mr. Jim Matthews has been one of our clients for almost a year now. And he's experienced some pretty amazing things. And we thought it'd be fun to ask him a few questions to kind of how he started his journey and how he's went along his journey, some of the struggles he's had, some of the things that he hasn't, so that, you know, if you've been looking to kind of take care of some things with your health specifically, and you've been looking for answers, maybe this will kind of inspire you. This will motivate you. This will get you ready and show you the food fixer experience and what's possible. So thank you for being with us, Jim.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being willing to totally bare your soul to us.
Anytime. I'm an open book.
All right, cool. So just to get started real quick. So like, Jim, tell me a little bit about yourself so people can kind of get to know you. Like where'd you come from? What's going on with you? Like what happened to, who is Jim Matthews?
Okay. Born and raised in McMinnville, Tennessee. My grandparents were key in my raising. Both sets of my grandparents were virtually people who lived off the land. We grew all of our own food, killed our own animals, that kind of thing. Whatever was eaten was grown on the farm. Huh. So I didn't know any other lifestyle. I didn't know what a hamburger or a pizza were until I was in high school. Because we didn't eat that way. We didn't eat out in restaurants. It was amazing if we had something out, you know, on a Saturday while we were out doing errands. It just didn't happen. So I was raised eating pretty much anything and everything you wanted as long as it was from the farm and sitting on the table. So we churned our own butter, all that kind of stuff, made our own buttermilk, made our own cheese, whatever. Yeah. And that's the way I was raised. When I came to college, it was a whole new world, fast foods, and kind of put a lot of weight on, and and I was one happy little camper. Then got a teaching degree and started teaching, and I tried at that point. I was dating, got married, had kids, all that good stuff during that period of time, and complacency set its toll and the weight just kept coming on. I was also a rabid smoker at that point. I was doing
I didn't know that about you, Jim.
Yeah, I was doing at least 2 packs a day. And when I had my first heart attack, the smoking stopped. That ended it. I was done. No more.
How old were you when you had that first heart attack?
Mid-30s.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, mid-30s. Yeah, been a long time ago. But then we went on and went through divorce and all that good stuff, and continued teaching. And it got to the point where I had another heart attack. And the school system kind of said, you know, it might be a good idea, rather than having another heart attack in front of the kids, if you just decided to retire, since you have your time in and you could get full retirement, just level it and do it early. So I really didn't have a whole lot of choice, but I did retire. And I've not looked back.
So how old were you then?
Mid-50s.
Okay. And that was after your second
heart attack. Yes.
Now, where were you? Were you there, or where were you when you had your second heart attack?
The first heart attack, I was at school.
Okay.
The second heart attack was July 4th, going into the 5th overnight. And I made it to the hospital by myself and had it right in front of my doctor, basically.
Wow.
And had I not had it right in front of him, I wouldn't have survived, because they immediately went in and did the stents and the surgery and all that kind of stuff and got it all straightened out. And yeah, they pretty well said I was the luckiest person on earth to have had it where I did, in the lobby of the hospital or in the ER of the hospital, or I wouldn't have made it. So,
how did it make you feel when the school basically asked you to retire, or said that really that's the best thing for you? It sounded like, is that something that you wanted to do anyway?
No, I wasn't ready to retire, but my kids were everything. My students were everything. And I would not want to put them through the trauma. And that was basically, it would be a very traumatizing thing to see your teacher go down in front of you.
Sure.
And I wouldn't put my kids through that for anything. So I did a couple of years of the after school program, before school program type thing, just to finish out my time, as it were. And that was okay, but it still wasn't in the classroom. And I was ready to leave by that point. So
what did you teach, Jim?
Oh, it depends on the year.
Okay.
The majority,
you've been around. You've been around.
I have. I've taught everything from first grade through eighth grade. Majority of my time was fifth and sixth grade science and social studies. That's the majority of the time.
And you loved that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, loved it.
Gotcha. And so, wow, so it was because of your health issues that you had to kind of give that up.
Yes. Yes. And it was, I hate to say the word ignorance, but it was ignorance on my part. I should have been eating better, but I didn't know any better. It just, it wasn't part of the Upper Cumberland lifestyle to,
So what kind of happened to you that kind of finally made you kind of hit the wall and like realize that it was food related? At what point in time did you make that connection?
Well, about a year and a half ago, maybe just a year ago, somewhere in that period, I went to the doctor, had all of the blood work done and everything. And he pretty well said, you're a heart attack waiting to happen. Every measurement I've taken, every marker is out of whack. Your cholesterol is off the charts. Your A1C is crazy. It's 14. That's ridiculous. It needs to be 5, which I didn't know what that meant at that point. Had to do a little research. My blood glucose was out of control, and I had a family history, quote unquote. I know that's not necessarily a determinant, but still the tendency is there. Had a family history of anywhere from 500 to 700 with some of them. And that I didn't want that for myself. That scared me to the point where I had to do something. And he finally ended that meeting, that appointment with, you get hold of this and change your life or you won't live through the year.
So you had already had 2 heart attacks.
Yes.
And the doctor said you were a 3rd heart attack waiting to happen.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
No worries.
Solicitation calls.
No worries. No worries.
So that was the time that. So when you first realized that, now you had mentioned to me, okay, let me kind of keep track of everything. You'd mentioned to us that, you'd gained weight, and that, can you kind of share with us a little bit of, if you're willing to kind of share with some of the kind of the numbers, like with the weight, what you got up to, and kind of with some of the numbers, blood pressure and stuff.
Right. Well, when I first got to college, I was running about 180 to 190 pounds. I was very athletic. In the marching band, I was a cheerleader. I did all that kind of stuff, working out constantly. Once I started teaching and got married and had kids, that kind of went by the wayside. I didn't have time for all that. Preparing for classes and everything took the majority of my time. The weight just started piling on. By the time I retired, I had gotten up, but during COVID, I got up to 387, pushing 400 pounds.
Wow.
And that was ridiculous. That's at the point where the doctor said, you got to get hold of this or do something. So, and he was right. He was right. I mean, he was being honest with me. And my blood pressure was sky high. I told you the numbers at the time. I cannot remember exactly what they were, Ron.
At the time that you had told me, it was like, I think it was like 210 over 140.
Yes, I think that's right.
It was,
that's right.
I mean, it was mind boggling to me when you told me that.
Well, I took it today, 113 over 80. Yeah, so big difference.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And my blood glucose levels were running in the mid 300s at that point.
Yeah.
Today it was 123, and I even cheated yesterday with some avocados.
Did you ever think the day would come when you figured an avocado is cheating?
No, but it's here. It's here.
So let me ask you this. Had you, you said that you had told me back months ago, you had told me how that you had been trying some different diets before kind of you went into the foodFIX experience. What things had you kind of been working on and to trying to take care of your weight?
If it's out there, I tried it. All the crazy diets, everything from keto to Bluto, everything, I tried it. And it didn't matter what I was doing. I tended to gain weight on it. And I couldn't figure out why. Yeah. And when I first saw yours from when you were in Florida, very first cast, I decided, that made sense. And I tried it on my own for a while because I didn't know where to go at that point. I didn't feel like blindly going into something was the way to go. So I wanted to do a little research and try it on my own, which I did. And I started seeing results even just on my own.
Yeah. So let me rewind for the audience. So you're referencing, you ran into me and Vince's very first masterclass that we did. I was on vacation at the time, and it was before I'd shut down my restaurant to turn it plant-based. And so, I spent my whole vacation preparing for that masterclass. We had like 25 people watch or something like that. And you were on that masterclass. So how did you go about, what made you open to looking at that? How'd you even hear about it? How did that, you had been told this by your doctor, and then suddenly you were on this class from this, this white and this black guy that was just talking about food, how did that happen? That you just,
I was one of those people that you spoke about on your video today that was buying haphazardly from your lockdown specials and taking them and sharing them.
Don't tell me that, Jim. Don't tell me that.
Wait a minute. And I was sharing them with other people that were first responders, medical people, and, not forcing them to eat it, but having it available for them. And I would sit down with them and eat the meal. Then you mentioned this, and I started looking at it. And of course, the lockdowns ended about that time. And I just decided, this is worth listening to. And I can't remember if it was Savannah or Santana. One of them mentioned that you were going to be doing a podcast about an eating. And I believe I contacted you at that point, and you said, I'm going to be on vacation, but we're going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
or a Zoom meeting or something along. I can't remember exactly how you worded it.
Yeah.
And said, you're invited to listen. So I jumped on and listened. So yeah, basically I heard it from you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when to also to tie the audience in. So when he's talking about the lockdown, so for a while when COVID first happened, to keep my restaurants, I had a normal restaurant at the time. For anybody that don't know my background, I had 2 restaurant locations, and we'd won awards for catfish and for all kinds of stuff. But when COVID hit in early 2020, it shut down our dining room, and that was the main source of business. So I started doing these, I call them Billy Mays specials, where I drew a big board and I would write down 12 dozen chicken tenders, 1 dozen chicken tenders, 1 dozen pieces of catfish, 2 baked potatoes, 2 orders of green beans, 2 orders this, that, and the other. And then I would, say it's $97 worth of food, and then like double everything and cut the price in half and wait, there's more. And it was doing really well. And so we had people driving, they'd be cars wrapped around our buildings, picking up these things from 2-hour drive away just to come pick up these meals because they were such good deals. And the reason why I'd done that very first masterclass is, and the reason why Jim was there, sorry, that was my son popping in. I don't know if y'all could hear that. He's a toddler. And he always likes to come here, see what daddy's doing when he's doing video recordings. So, but I was really struggling with it because I had come to the Food Fixer knowledge. My dad had, experienced the Food Fixer experience. My wife had with her, she had ovarian cysts and some other stuff, and she had overcome a lot of that. My dad overcome his arthritis and his digestive troubles and acid reflux, all kinds of stuff, lost a lot of weight. And so it was paining me because people like yourself, Jim, was ordering these lockdown meals, and they would come and they would be thanking me for it, telling me about how thankful they were because it was so hard for them to go shopping and walking around in the grocery store because of how overweight they were, or because of their diabetic neuropathy, or because of their knee pain, or because their husband just had a heart attack and was bedridden, and so they couldn't leave him. And so that's the reason I don't know if you know that's the reason during that time that I did that class, because it was bothering me a lot. So I contacted Vince, because Vince was the only one that I knew that knew way more than I did about this stuff. And he had been teaching people and coaching people, and people paid him thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars because, way more than they pay doctors a lot of times, simply because every single time people talked to him for any length of period of time and were coached by him, they got better in massive ways. So I was like, well, that's the guy I need to help me do this. So I contacted Vince there, and then he helped me. He taught half that class, when we did it. And I know, what was the moment, Jim, that if you remember it at all on that master class, that you knew something was different?
Clicked. It just clicked right in the middle of it, when you were saying that the purpose is to change your lifestyle, not your diet, and that kind of resonated with me. Why just go on a diet when you can change your lifestyle and your eating habits? Why call it a diet?
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's really not. And that clicked with me. It made sense that if I'm eating a certain way, which I had all my life, and it was through ignorance, I did not know any better. When you've eaten that way your entire life, it doesn't seem wrong. Just like, if you treat animals a certain way all of your life, and all of a sudden you have a pet indoors that you've never had before, it's odd. It takes some getting used to.
Yeah, or the fish that's in water, if the water's making it sick, it don't suspect the water is making it sick because it's just
Exactly.
in the water. So that's the only experience that it's ever had is in the water.
Right. Exactly.
If it was allergic to water, it would have no idea that that's why it's allergic.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly the way I'd been all my life. Why am I eating this stuff if I know it's going to make me sick?
Yeah.
So that's when the switch happened in my head. And literally, it was like a switch changed. And all of a sudden, I just didn't crave those things as much anymore. I wanted more of the fruits and vegetables. I wanted more of the resources that were available to me in this area that were locally grown.
Yeah.
Why not?
But what happened to you? You did this, and you had mentioned how that you didn't quite get there yet, right?
Right.
But you said you did start experiencing stuff. So, like, what was the first steps you took? Go back with me and pretend like you just found that you just watched the master class, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. What was the first thing you started doing?
The first thing I did was kind of pull the meats.
Okay.
I kept everything else. I just pulled the meats. I did not realize at that point the oils were a problem, that the cheese was a problem, that eggs were a problem. I didn't catch any of that. It just didn't resonate. I simply pulled the meats. It got better, but better doesn't make it right.
What was some of those first things that you experienced just with those first little changes?
Well, the weight started coming off. I felt more like moving around. The energy level came up. I'm getting reverb. I felt more like walking. I felt more like doing. I'd already had one knee replacement, and they were telling me to have the other one. And I still haven't had the second one, and it's better. It just continually gets better. The further I am into this, the better it gets. And me, in my age at 65 and the problems that I had, I think it may be a little slower than some of these younger folks are getting, but that's okay. I'm still getting there.
Vince, do you have any questions specifically?
Yeah, I want to know what medications have you been able to either reduce or get off since you've been on this journey?
Okay. I was on 3 different kinds of insulin because of the resistance I had. The Trulicity is now completely gone. There was another form. I didn't write down the name of it. I don't even remember. And then the Tresiba, I've gone from 65 units a day down to 35 units a day. The Simvastatin, I have gone from 40 units a day to 20 units a day.
And that's for that. What's that for?
Cholesterol.
Okay, cool. So see, I told you. See, I had to ask what that was for, and Vince knew exactly what it was for. And so the first, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. So you were on 3 insulins at the beginning of this, and then now you're down to 1 insulin, and even that 1 insulin is cut in half.
Yes. Well, almost half, from 65 to 35.
Yeah, almost half. Yeah.
Yeah.
And continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
I had to clear that up in my mind.
Well, I talked to my doctor, and he said, if we continue on the way we are right now, by the end of this calendar year, I should be off of everything except the lisinopril and metformin.
Okay.
And those would probably be reduced. He said, you can't just come off of those just immediately. You have to lessen the amount and come off of them gradually. But he wants me off of everything else first, which makes sense. So
let me ask you this. What are some of the things, or I'm just going to let Vince, if he has any more questions. Do you have any other questions, Vince?
Yeah. So because I want to talk about how you've reduced your amount of diabetes medication. You were on 3 insulins, right?
Yes.
Okay. And 2 of them are gone. One of them was cut from 65 to 35. And in doing so, your A1C went from 14 down to, where is it now?
It's 8.1 right now, somewhere in that range.
So dramatic reduction of your A1C on less medication. You're
Yes.
fasting glucose when you started this on 3 different types of insulin. Where was your fasting glucose when you started?
Above 350.
Wow. And where is it now?
Today it was 123.
So from 350 to 123 with 2 insulins gone and another one cut from 65 down to 35.
Right. And this is a little higher than normal. 123 is higher than it has been. It's usually between 110 and 115.
That's how does that make you feel to experience such a transition?
If I could turn cartwheels right now in front of this camera, I would. Seriously, it makes you feel great to know that you're doing something right to help yourself. It's
wow. Amazing. Now, my next question is on your blood pressure, because Rollins said your blood pressure started like 210 over 120 or something like that. Yeah. And today you said it's 113 over 80.
Yes.
And and did your medication change on that?
The blood pressure was the lisinopril it's the same. It's 10 units a day, 10 milligrams a day.
And it was 10 units a day, or is 10 milligrams a day back when it was 210 over 120 as well?
It was 5. It was 5 units.
Oh,
and,
okay.
They've upped that. When they took me down off of the insulin, he upped the lisinopril. He said it would be a temporary. So,
okay. Yeah, well,
lisinopril wants to make sure.
Yeah, because lisinopril is more than blood pressure.
Yes.
Is why.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Boy, those are, and your total weight, your drop, now tell me, and also how tall are you and what was your starting weight and what's your weight today?
I wish I had a camera when Rollin met me the first time. It was amazing, the look on his face. I'm right at 6'3".
Oh, you're a tall guy.
Yeah, right at 6'3".
Yeah, and I'm 5'7", and I'm like this wide, and so like I'd only seen Jim Matthews on camera. We're the same size on camera. Right. And he came into the restaurant and he was like this massive, looked like a linebacker, man.
Well, that also puts into perspective. You said when you were in college, you weighed 180 or something like that.
Right.
So 180, 6'3".
I was skinny.
You pretty thin. You pretty thin in college. Okay, and that got up to, I think you said your highest weight was 387.
Yes.
And now it's where?
I weighed this morning 260.
Gosh.
How many pounds is that?
127.
127. So what was your pant size before? Like when you were
Oh, you've got a picture of that. I was wearing.
I do, but I have to hear it.
Yeah, I was wearing a size 56 waist, and what I've got on right now are 40s.
Wow!
I have to have a belt to keep them up.
And I believe you told me one day that you were able to fit in 38. You're just not quite comfortable with it yet.
Right, it's a little tight yet, but yeah.
That's the next
what I
step.
said. These are 40s, and I have to have a belt.
Awesome. That is
Jim,
fantastic.
What would you say to anybody that is considering the masterclass and or considering foodFIX University? What would you say to that person?
Go for it. There is not one thing about this that can hurt you. I don't care where you are on the spectrum. If you want to lose 5 pounds or lose 500 pounds, it's doable with this program. If you want to get rid of aches and pains, no guarantee, but it works. Everybody that I've talked to, it has helped. It may not completely alleviate, but it helps. I mean, from people who could barely walk to running marathons, amazing, amazing. They are my heroes. They are who I look to. And this being a community, I was making mistakes when I was trying it by myself. The foodFIX University just gently pointed out the errors of my way without making it personal. And I was able to correct those few things. And then I really started seeing results.
Let me ask you something, Jim. What was kind of some of the things that, during your experience, whether it was on the masterclass, whether it was in the program, just in general, what are some of the things that you thought were true that weren't?
Okay, I thought I was going to eat nothing but salads. I thought that raw fruit was going to be a delicacy that you got maybe once a week.
Oh, wow.
Because of the diabetes, see, the fruit was always, that you don't do that much because it spikes the sugar. It doesn't really spike the sugar. It's everything else that goes along with it. But anyway, we found that out. I found out that my culprit was the hidden oils. Not just the oil I cooked with, but the oils that were hidden in processed foods. I didn't realize that. Even if that's not something you want to give up, if you limit it, it helps, and this is not a blanket, this works for everybody no matter what. You've got to move a little and adjust here and there a little bit to make it comfortable for you. And if something's working for everybody else, but it's not working for you, ask Vince.
That's so funny. So, you had mentioned just a second ago, and it reminded me of something that you said one time. So pre-Food Fixer Jim, you had told me that when you ate a banana, sometimes it would spike all the way up to 700.
Yes.
Okay.
A simple fruit, an apple, would spike it to like 500. And it was not necessarily the fruit. It was the oils and things I was eating around it. And it was showing a sensitivity that wasn't really there.
Yeah. So now when you eat a banana, what do you see?
Oh, 5 to 10 points max. It doesn't change much.
But yet you're still diabetic.
Yes.
You're just not nearly as bad a diabetic. And eventually, the goal is for us to help you completely reverse it, and that's the direction that you're going.
Well, the way the doctor kind of sort of said it, and this is my take on what he said now, this isn't verbatim, but once you're diabetic forever. It's just that you have learned ways to combat it to where your sensitivity is under control.
I'm curious as to how Vince would react to that. I want to hear Vince's reaction because I'm just curious.
That's why I like to use the word remission.
Yes.
Because part of what the doctor is saying is that your body has the condition to cause your fat, your glucose to rise. Okay. What I strongly disagree with is when someone says, once a diabetic, always a diabetic, you'll always be on medication, you'll always have to watch your carbs. That I strongly disagree with. Well,
I didn't mean to make it sound like that. That's not what he said.
No, you didn't. But my point is that that's what many people interpret once a diabetic, always diabetic, right? And many people will interpret it that way. But what we know to be true and what you have experienced is that you can eat in a way that allows your body to manage glucose better. And the reason why I like the word remission rather than reversal is because as long as you continue to eat unprocessed plant-based foods, you will get better. And if somebody says, oh, so some people don't like the word reversal because they say, well, what happens if I just go back to eating donuts and French fries and chicken and cheese? Well, it comes back. Well, it's not reversed. Okay. So you're in remission. You've got the potential of going in remission, which means either severely reduced medications with glucose under control or potentially no medication whatsoever and glucose under control. So let's call it remission. So if
you know what that reminds me of? You know what that makes me think of? That's like saying, okay, if you're smoking a cigarette, you got tar in your lungs. Okay, well, let me show you how to reverse that tar in your lungs. Quit smoking cigarettes. Then over time, there's no tar in your lungs. Yeah, but what happens if I smoke cigarettes again? Am I going to get tar in my lungs again? Yeah, you are. It's like, but no. I mean, diabetes is for anybody that's watching this, because I mean, I guess that was probably one of the biggest things for you because you couldn't even have surgery or anything because your A1C was so bad. Was that correct?
Right.
Yeah,
That's why I didn't get the
like for anybody to try to wrap this up in the next 5-10 minutes or so. What I know there's some really good books out there for anybody that has diabetes that's looking for something right now. I know that like Dr. Neil Barnard's Reversing Diabetes book is fantastic. And I believe that Robbie and Cyrus Mastering Diabetes, I can't remember their last names, but
Robbie Barbaro and Cyrus Kambata.
That's why I couldn't remember their names. No offense to them. They're just really difficult names. I'm just a poor old Southern Tennessee boy. So those are two good. Do you know any more that would be really good that you can think of?
I mean, that's all you, I mean, those are two really good places to start. And it's start and finish. I mean, all you need is going to be in there.
Would you tell me a little bit, Jim, about some of the stuff that your doctor, when you first did this and all of a sudden he started seeing all these numbers coming down and all these, and because you told me he was like mortified, like he couldn't believe what was happening. So you share a little bit about like rewind to the first time you went and got that new, and he saw like what happened? Give me that interaction a little bit.
The look on his face when he first saw me was amazing because I was like a third of the size that I used to be. And then he started looking at the numbers and it's kind of, well, that a boy type deal. And then what are you doing? And giving him detailed information about what I'm doing. And then it was like, well, okay. I couldn't, yeah. And I asked him when he was going to start it. And before he left the room, he gave me a hug. He was that impressed.
That is so amazing. I mean, it's not every day that people see, what was the blood pressure drop? It's not every day that people see 210 over 140 go all the way down to what? What'd you say? 112 or 115?
Today's 113 over 80.
So what kind of drop is that? Vince, you're the math guy.
So I don't know. You said he started at 210 or he started at 240. I don't know. But
210. It's 210 over 140.
Over 140.
Yeah. So it's basically 100 over 1. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's not every day that people go in there and suddenly their blood pressure dropped like that. Your cholesterol dropped like crazy, yes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to see the cholesterol, the A1C drop, or the glucose level A1C drop from 14 to 8.1 was, what are you doing, boy?
What's happening?
I imagine doctors don't see a whole lot of that.
No.
So, yeah.
And, and as, Vance was actually just talking. He sent me a message a couple of days ago. You may find this interesting, Jim, but Dr. Michael Greger in the book How Not to Die, or well, he wrote the book How Not to Die, but in sorry, my wife. What you looking for? Oh, okay. So Dr. Michael Greger puts out on nutritionfacts.org every single about every week, doesn't he? Does he do it every week?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday are new videos, and Tuesday and Thursday are new blogs.
There you go. So he put out a new one that shows you exactly like how doctors get trained and or how they don't get trained.
There was a report that was published where they interviewed a bunch of doctors, and some very, very basic nutrition questions they couldn't answer. They basically got.
See, I haven't watched it yet, Vince, but I'm so excited about watching it because you told me I'd love that.
They got 70% of the questions wrong. Basic nutrition questions, they got 70% of them wrong, and just questions that they should know. And then here's the part that really got me. They in the questions where they asked a bunch of nutrition questions, and after they asked questions, then they asked them how proficient do you believe you are in nutrition? And the majority of them said, I'm great. Now, that's a huge problem because number one, they are in a position of authority. Number two, they don't know nutrition, but number three, they think they know. It's like it's the worst combination ever. It'd be different if they were like, you know what? This is really not my thing. I really need to refer you. Okay, that's fine, right? I got no problem if I ask anybody a question and they say, you know what? That's not my specialty. You may want to see somebody else do your own research. I respect that. But to have a doctor where people are going to ask their opinion on the food they should eat, and to have so many doctors that they think that they know nutrition, yet they don't.
But you know, this is what it's like. This is what it's like. As I hear this is what I hear, right? Imagine for a second that you go in to a mechanic, right? And you bring your vehicle into your mechanic and you're like, you know what? I really need to figure out what's wrong with my car. And he's like, I'm a great mechanic. I know all about cars. Right? And then you give him a test and he makes a 30 on it on basic mechanical. You see what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Like that's kind of the similar situation. Now, I'm not saying doctors aren't smart people. I'm just saying, I mean, what was it? The American College of Medicine said that it's like there's a severe deficiency, or American Journal of Medicine, right?
Yeah. So there's the
American Journal of Medicine, 2015.
That said that. So there's this juxtaposition that is so scary. And that is basically the food that we eat is the number one cause of death and disability. It's more than tobacco. And this was done by the Global Burden of Disease study, which was the most intense study ever done on the link between health and lifestyles. Global burden of disease. It's like 500 doctors in different countries. I mean, it was a massive study. And the result of that said that the biggest cause of death as far as what your actions are is the food that you eat. Number two, and that's number one of death and number one disability. And then number two is tobacco. So you would think that if the number one thing that you do that causes your sickness is your food, that would be the number one thing that doctors are trained on, but it's like the least that thing that they're trained on. So there literally could not be a bigger mismatch. We know that the food that people eat causes the most death and causes the most disability. And we also know that doctors know very, 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 very little about it. Most doctors know very little about it. It is a catastrophe waiting to happen. And that's the reason why we spend over $3 trillion in healthcare, yet we are so sick. That's the problem.
And Jim is the prime example. Because you told me that you had been doing exactly kind of what you were told to be doing.
Yes. I had a nutritionist from a hospital in Nashville who gave me a diet to follow. And you would be amazed at the number of fried foods that were on it.
Mm.
Wow.
And I was following that diet.
Wow.
And getting
And
worse.
your A1C got worse and worse and worse. Is that correct?
Yes. I continued to get worse.
Wow. That's so scary.
Was that master class when you were on that? Was that the click when you decided to go the other way?
Yes. Yes.
And then what was the result?
Well, everything started getting better, but I still hit a few walls, because I was making mistakes because I didn't have all the tools.
Yeah.
Everything wasn't laid out, to where it made sense. I just did what I thought you said.
After what? I think that first master class was like 3 hours long.
Yes.
So for 3 hours, you did as much as we told you to do.
Yeah. Well, as much as I absorbed.
Yeah.
What you said to do.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of information that came out in that first one that I wish I had recorded and could have played back. But, there was a lot of stuff there. And I just kept the things that stayed in my mind and tried to work with those. And they helped. They didn't complete it.
Because when you contacted, listen, I didn't even know. And you contacted me, and I believe you had contacted me and said, hey, this is working really well. I've lost 68 pounds and this happened and this happened and this happened, but I've hit a wall. And I'm like, what? I remember texting Vince and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy named Jim Matthews watched this, our first thing, because we hadn't done another one. And we had just done that one. And the very first one we done, we kind of thought it was a flop because no one worked with us. We were like, hey, let us help you. And no one did. So we were like, failure.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't. No, and we actually had multiple people, two specific, you and a lady named Ashley that did the same thing. And she had tremendously affected her rheumatoid arthritis. And hopefully we'll be able to get her on here one time. But anyway, so first of all, I want to highlight what you had said about carbs. You eat fruit like crazy now. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
What about potatoes? You ever eat potatoes?
Live on potatoes.
and your blood sugar is better now than it was before.
Definitely.
Right. So, I mean, that's just, it's just crazy. Right. And I can't wait to see what happens to you in the next 6 months to a year, Jim. I mean, you've lost 127 pounds. You've cut 2 of your 3 insulins completely away, and you didn't do it. Your doctor said, oh my gosh, I have to do that. That's what's so amazing about this. He had to take the medication away because all your numbers would be too low if he didn't.
Right.
And how long, you've only been at this thing for a year. How long was you at causing it to happen? How long had you been creating diabetes in your life,
all my life,
and high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And this is, how does it feel? Cause you had told me that during COVID, it was really hard for you because you had been shut in and you're a people person.
Yeah, definitely.
And you had told me that you had told me one time something about you were sitting around and you told me it was depressing because you were basically waiting around to die because the doctor had told you probably wouldn't last all year. How did that make you feel?
I don't know that I've ever been more depressed than I was right after he said that, because I knew I could not communicate with people one-on-one. I knew that there wasn't going to be any social outlet as such. And that's basically why I was buying all of those packs and going and sitting with people and providing their meal to give me a social outlet to sit and talk with people. And so, I was glad to buy those just to be able to go do that.
Yeah.
I needed that interaction. That was my food.
Man, I'm so glad you told me that because that makes me feel so much better about the lockdowns.
Well,
when I did those packs, because those
told you
things have
honest-
haunted me. Those things have haunted me in my mind.
I told you honestly, I thanked you in every way I knew how to thank you.
Yeah.
It was as much for the interaction I was getting as it was for the food.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I appreciate that, Jim. And I'm so happy that you took that plunge because let me ask you this. If you hadn't have made that decision a year ago,
we wouldn't be talking right now. I wouldn't be here.
You really don't think that?
I really don't think I would be here. I mean, it was that severe. I was in that much pain and that much problem. I don't think I would be here.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that, Jim. I really do. And I think our time is out, but if you had anything to say to someone, if this is their first thing they're watching and they don't know anything about it, what
the community that you created is life-saving. We throw things out and depend on one another for the rebound as much as we do from you. I honestly believe that the social interaction is as important as the secrets that you give. And the food fixing and the food hacking proved to me that I don't have to be restrictive in what I eat. It's there. It's just, do you have the wherewithal to attack it, to tackle it, to do it? And if you are, great, more power to you. And if not, even the small changes that you make will better your life. There's not one thing in this program that can possibly hurt you. It's going to make you better regardless of how much, whether you take 10% or go all in at 100%. It's going to make it better. You go in 10%, I did that. I guarantee you'll want more. You will want
That's cool.
more.
I like that. That's neat. And there's tons of resources online and stuff. We want to see more people get healthy. That's why we do, the free masterclass and try to pack it as packed as possible. Anybody's can reach out to us, message us or something like that if they want to get on the next masterclass or something like that. Otherwise, there's many doctors you can look up: Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. John McDougall, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. Who am I missing? Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Clapper, Laura Marbes. I don't know if I ever actually pronounced her name right there. Gosh, what is it? There's Dr. Kahn or something. What's his name?
Joel Kahn is a cardiologist out of Detroit.
Yeah. There's a bunch. I mean, I know I'm missing some people out. So whatever doctor that don't know me personally, and I don't know them, which I don't know any of them guys personally. Maybe one day I'll interview them on this. That'd be pretty cool. But they all have helped me in some way or other. And I appreciate them putting the information out there. And so we're just out here trying to share it with the world as much as possible and inspire people as much as possible. And Jim, I thank you for taking that leap of faith that you did with us so that we could help you. It was like, we're reaching, can we help you? Please. Jim was the first guy that was like, sure, you can help me.
Right. And I still feel that way. I really do. I mean, how many times do I ask you, do I need to do this?
Yeah. Hey, and we love, and we love continually to do that. Me and Vince say this in all of our group coaching, like we start off with everyone with wins, and it's so exciting because it's like, it never gets old hearing people, when you get to, because before I just had a regular restaurant and people like, yeah, that's a great steak, et cetera, or, well, it was overcooked this time. It's not quite as good as it was last time. Well, that catfish was a little greasier than it was last time. It's not the same type of thanks than when people say, oh my goodness, I was able to get in the floor with my grandkids for the first time in 2 years. I was able to do a marathon. I mean, a 5K. I didn't run it, but I walked a 5K after being basically stuck mostly in the bed for 4 years. You know, like, it never gets old. Does it ever get old, Vince?
I love it. I love it. It's literally the fuel that keeps us going. It's the fuel that keeps us going. It is the best thing. So we are the reason why Roland and I started this business is because we wanted to change lives. And it has been an honor to have worked with you over the last year, Jim, and to continuously watch you get better and better and better. That's the fuel that keeps us going.
That's a mutual feeling. But I've gardened for the first time in 30 years. First time I've been able to in 30 years.
That's so cool. I love it. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it. I'm going to close this out so that we can be respectful of your time, Jim. But I just want to really thank you for being on here. And hopefully someone that watched this got some kind of nugget out of this that they're going to be able to use for themselves.
Anytime.
Vince, you got anything before we close out?
I think we're done, man. I think we're done. We're good. We're good.
Cool. Hey, y'all have a fantastic night, and we'll see y'all on the next episode.
You got it.